All right, so it's been a minute, but I'm gonna just try and recap where I can. But I wanted to definitely talk a little bit about Terence Crawford dethroning Jeff Horn for the WBO Welterweight Championship of the World, and it was just an impressive performance, man. This was truly, I think, like a true breakout performance insofar as Crawford's finally, I think, proven himself in that true pound for pound sense. I think it was a little bit up in the air beforehand because of the fact that you can argue, and I think argue relatively justifiably, that a lot of the guys that he fought at 135 and 140 pounds, he kind of happened upon them as those divisions were in flux, whereby they didn't necessarily have a heavy talent pool, like a very heavy top heavy talent pool, where some of the guys were almost like the leftovers or the afterthoughts of those divisions as other fighters had moved through them. As your Adrian Broners had moved up and out of them, and so on and so forth. They were divisions where certain guys, I think, were able to capture belts, for instance, and they weren't necessarily top level fighters unto themselves. Like they were high level fighters, but they weren't necessarily those next level guys that you could see holding a belt for a particularly long time. I think that's been proven since, in particular with Julius Ndongo having been completely obliterated once again by Regis Prograis in his very next fight after the Terence Crawford fight. But here against Jeff Horn, he was fighting a guy that was very much primed and a guy that had just come off a very good win over Manny Pacquiao. And I guess, it's controversial in some people's eyes, but as far as I'm concerned, it wasn't controversial at all. I thought Jeff Horn pretty much manhandled Pacquiao for the vast majority of the fight. I thought Pacquiao, had some great moments in certain rounds, but a lot of times he was generally outworked in those same very same rounds. And even as he managed to hurt Horn and come close, relatively close to stopping him late in the fight, the fact that he wasn't able to capitalize on that and finish the job, I think, is a credit to the work that Horn had done throughout the entire fight, because of the fact that he had pretty much taken a lot out of Manny by that point, that Manny just didn't have enough left in the gas tank to be able to finish the job. And Horn actually finished the last couple of rounds after having been hurt almost to the point of the ref stopping it. He finished those rounds even stronger than Pacquiao did. So, I mean, in spite of how badly he was hurt, his conditioning was such that he was able to outlast Pacquiao as the fight came to a conclusion. So I definitely rated Horn very highly. I at least rated him as a top 5 welterweight. If not maybe top 3. That win over Pacquiao was a very significant one. The only wins you could really consider better than that would be Spence's win probably over Kell Brook, and Keith Thurman's, I guess, multiple wins, over the likes of Porter and Danny Garcia and so on. So I definitely rated Jeff Horn pretty highly going into this fight. I did still favor Crawford ultimately because of the fact that, I just think that the guy's talented. That was me projecting his level of skill, his level of talent, and also the fact that he wasn't going to be draining himself so much as well. He's a guy that, not unlike Tommy Hearns, was a bit of a freak of nature to be making 147 pounds for the years that he was making it. I think Terence Crawford was a bit of a freak of nature to be able to make 135 pounds for as long as he was, whereby both of them were ultimately cutting, not just, cutting their fat down to the lowest, body fat percentage that they could in order to make the weight, that they could do so healthfully and then rehydrate, of course, afterwards. But they were doing so and even cutting muscle as well. And I think that it definitely shows with Crawford. Also too, Crawford's getting, he's pretty much in the middle of what people would consider your prime, your late 20s, early 30s, or what have you, where your full kind of man body is what it's gonna be. You have kind of your full rounded out muscle mass generally, unless you're like a bodybuilder, and then you can gain a bit more so into your 30s and your 40s. That's like a whole nother discussion. Like, certain people that are like strongman competitors and stuff like that will do that. But I haven't even gotten a chance to talk about the fight yet. But I thought Jeff Horn was actually giving Terence Crawford a lot of trouble really early. Crawford had a good beat on Horn in the first round, though. The first round was actually really close. Crawford had a pretty good beat on Horn. To a degree, he pretty much turned southpaw almost immediately. But in doing that, Horn made him eat a number of right hands as Crawford turned southpaw. But all that said, I did inch it to Crawford. But I could very well see Horn getting that first round too, because I thought he landed a number of really good shots, good right hands. He was bum rushing Crawford, just really testing him. In a way, I guess you could say that it was somewhat reminiscent of back when Floyd Mayweather fought Ricky Hatton, where Horn's ability to cut down the ring, cut distance, and also kind of like be all the way on the outside, and then all of a sudden, boom, he's right in your face, and he's throwing punches at you, and he's catching you with some of those shots too, some of those kind of short chopping shots. Giving Crawford a lot of issues. The second round, I definitely give to Horn. I thought he was able to cut the distance really well. I thought he had great timing on those shots. He was starting to force Crawford into like trying to give him different looks. He was forcing Crawford all the way back against the rope. He was forcing Crawford to clinch quite a bit as well throughout these first few rounds. And I think Crawford was trying to kind of take something out of Horn as well. Try and test Horn's strength. Especially because of the fact that Horn, it took him 3 attempts to actually make 147 pounds. Horn said that there was something fishy going on with the scales and things like that. And I mean, who knows? That's all in the past now, though. Can't necessarily change it. And maybe it might be possible. And I think that there might be some validity to it because of what I'll get to a little bit later on in the fight, where Horn started to tire out a bit earlier than I thought he would. But pretty much I thought it was tit for tat. First 4 rounds, I went Crawford, Horn in terms of scoring those first 4 rounds. And, Horn was landing some good shots, chopping shots as he kind of made his rushes from the outside to the inside. Crawford was able to counter him really well. And there was a few times where they got into a couple of nice little exchanges, some nice little kind of 4, 5, 6 punch exchanges where I even said it when I was kind of doing live commentary on it. Where it kind of reminded me a little bit of like Barrera Morales, where it's like they just started throwing hot leather. They were just kind of being reactive. They were both in the line of fire, so they were just unloading their fucking clip on each other and seeing what came of it. And sometimes Horn got the advantage, sometimes Crawford got the advantage. So, sometimes one guy won the exchange, sometimes the other did. As I got into the 5th and the 6th, though, Horn appeared to be pretty tired. His work rate definitely dropped, and at that point, Crawford's ability to time Horn and his just sharp accuracy, his precision, and his just variety of punches, whereby he could kind of throw punches from different angles. He could switch stances and then start throwing punches from different angles on that stance, whether it's orthodox or southpaw. Started to really just nail Horn with a lot of shots. And also, there was a couple of shots to the body that he landed that I think paid real dividends. And that was a punch that Crawford actually neglected for much of this fight, that he actually should have done a lot more of, especially because Horn had so much trouble making the weight. A lot of times when guys cut that much weight, their body can be extra vulnerable because of the fact that in the process of rehydrating and basically stuffing themselves with food, with calories, basically in order to get that energy back. Sometimes their stomach muscles and like the muscles kind of surrounding their abdomen and all that are going to be really tender because of the fact that it's almost like you're like pumping stuff through. It's like you're stretching them out, and then they expand and retract as you're basically stuffing your face with fluids and salts and sugars and calories, just to get your energy back, to get your body back into equilibrium. It's like a lot of times, I don't know if you guys have ever seen people that go to like eating competitions, like that big hot dog eating competition in the U.S. On Independence Day, on the 4th of July. A lot of times, like those guys will actually almost like work out their stomach and stuff like that by trying to expand and retract them with fizzy drinks and stuff like that in order to be able to potentially fit more food in it, basically, essentially. But in any case, he was neglecting the body early. He started going into it really well. And I was saying that, in the 5th and the 6th round especially, that Horn needs to get a second wind, or otherwise Crawford's going to be able to finish the show in the next couple of rounds. And Horn, I thought, did get a second win in the 7th round, where he started to fight back almost like it was the first few rounds, where It was kind of a tit-for-tat fight. He managed to back Crawford up, force Crawford into a couple of clinches. I thought Horn actually won the 7th round as well. I thought Crawford was able to get back, kind of snatch the torch back in the 8th round, and he was busting up Jeff Horn, and kind of trying to almost stuff Horn back in that hole that he had kind of dug for him. And then finally in the 9th round, Crawford, with a series of accumulative body shots and headshots, managed to get the ref to stop the fight. And so he stopped him towards the end of the 9th round. And it was just a great performance, man. Like I said, kind of reminded me a little bit of the Floyd Mayweather-Ricky Hatton performance. And not only in the way that corners rushing Crawford and kind of forcing him to really react a lot quicker than Crawford had been really used to, probably since the Yuriorkis Gamboa fight. Probably also gave him his toughest fight since the Gamboa fight as well. And also I think not unlike with Mayweather and Hatton, he brought out a lot of different kind of variations of punches and techniques and stuff out of Crawford. He kind of brought out some of the best in Crawford. He's a guy that kind of forced Crawford to be able to fight outside of his comfort zone a little bit, and to force him to pull up more tricks out of the hat, so to speak. So it was a great performance for Crawford, and actually a great effort for Jeff Horn, man. He had managed to capitalize off of the win over Manny Pacquiao. He's made a lot of money in a very short time, and even now, as he most likely moves up to 154 pounds, I'm sure he can probably capitalize there too. His name is still of a relatively high value, especially at 154, where there's kind of a dearth of big name opponents. For the likes of Jeff Horn, Jeff Horn, for the likes of Jarrett Hurd, very similar names there, Jeff Horn, Jarrett Hurd, for the likes of Jarrett Hurd, for the likes of Jermell Charlo and Jaime Munguia, and Kell Brook, as a matter of fact. I think those 4 guys could be, the potential future relatively good paydays. Maybe not great paydays for Jeff Horn, but good ones. And also opportunities to potentially win a title. If he manages to beat them, then hey, he's right back in it. But as for Crawford, I'd been real critical of him. I think maybe critical of the people, not even critical of him, but critical of the people that are almost crowning him as the welterweight god before he even actually fought in the division, and I still wouldn't necessarily consider him the number 1 fighter there at all. To me, that's still Errol Spence at the moment. And as a matter of fact, I think I would maybe slightly edge Thurman over Crawford at the moment. Although I don't know, I'd have to that's a tough one. They're kind of neck and neck to me, especially because of how much Thurman has been kind of inactive and seemingly unwilling to even stay active. Defend his title and everything. As far as criticizing his talent, his skill, it's really tough to do that. I do think that he's still relatively vulnerable in certain instances, but I think it's still going to take a great fighter to be able to expose that. I think not unlike where I kind of rated Roman Chocolatito Gonzalez, where I said that he's so good that it's the thing that's only going to work against him is either time, wear and tear, and or the fact that he's moving up so many weight classes. And I kind of feel the same way about Terence Crawford. I think he might, who knows, maybe Spence might be his Risaket. That he might be the guy that's just too physical, that's just too strong, and where Crawford kind of takes advantage of his ability to be kind of physical in there, as well as being an excellent, timed boxer like Gonzalez. That Spence may be able to negate all of that just by forcing him into the type of just roughneck, throw you in the mud and let's fucking just throw hammers at each other type of fight that Spence can pretty much draw just about anybody into. I think the way his ability to cut off the ring is excellent. But I don't think that fight's happening anytime soon. I'm extremely skeptical of that due to the promotional entities involved. But all that said, though, it's a great win for Crawford. Is he the pound for pound number 1? Not for me, no. But he's definitely very high. He's definitely very high on the list. Maybe at the very least top 5, possibly top 3. I don't know. To me, the top 3 is Srisaket, Naoya Inoue, and Dani Nietes, man. That's the top 3. Maybe I might edge Crawford over Nietes. I don't know. I'd have to think about that one. But hey, Nietes has proven himself. He's gonna fight in another weight class for another weight class title. So we'll see how that goes. But all things considered, though, much props to Crawford. Great performance. I was thoroughly entertained by it, and I'm hoping he gets some good challenges in the future, too. So that's all for this one. Peace.